Hi, we're back. So this is door 3.2, which is about using viewports and exporting our files to PDFs. So when we're working here in the model space, everything is sort of in the scale of the document, but it's not actually prepared to be printed. We're going to use what are called viewports to assign individual images or snapshots to the plates in the sheet layers. So you should be using your template file, hopefully you are. Over here, if you skip on over to your sheet layers, there should be one that's 8.5 by 11. We're going to use that one. And there we are. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to change it to say sheet 1, which is it's going to tell me I can't do that because that sheet number is already used by an existing layer. So I need to come in here and like X out that object so that I can use that number, sheet 1, for the 8.5 by 11 sheet that I'm printing on. So this will be the sheet that I print this door out on. It will, it may not have this CAD file name updated, but it will do that once you update the title block. So let's first get our door onto this piece of paper, and then after that, we will come in and update our title block so that it is correct to the project we're working on. So I'm going to go back over to my scenery layer. I can just go straight in and say View, Create Viewport. When I do that, it will pop up this window, which is the viewport settings window. I'm going to tell it what layer I'd like the viewport on, and that's going to be my new 8.5 by 11 sheet. We will use a drawing label. It'll be drawing number 1, and we will call this door elevation. The scale that it defaults to is 1/4 inch scale, but I want this to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to put it into 1/2 inch scale, and I'll do that here. You can also change that later if you want. And I'm going to leave everything else the same. So I hit OK. In my case, I have some other garbage, and it took that too. So I'm going to come in now and edit the viewport to crop out all of this work that I left on the side. So the first thing I do to edit a viewport is I double click on it, and I'm going to get this edit viewport pop-up. Do not change this. Let it always do that. Let it always give you this pop-up because that lets you edit the different components of the viewport. We're going to first go into crop, say OK, and then you draw a box that will become the crop box around the object that you want. And then you say exit viewport crop. So now I have my door. She's lovely. Her drawing label is way the heck over here, which is weird. So I'm going to come back in again and I'm going to edit annotations. Okay. So when I go to edit annotations, I can move that drawing label around now. I can center it up on my plate. And then the last thing I'm going to do is, and I exited out of that already, but the last thing that I will do is come in and give us some basic dimensions. We're not going to go crazy. I don't need the dimension of everything in the thing, but I do want to get some basic dimensions put in. So you can get your dimension tools here over on the side, or you can hit this ruler and then they're all kind of collected together. We are going to start, and we want to make sure we're using ASME dimensions up here. Let's see. Did I make a default for you? That'll work. So I've already adjusted the class for your dimensions. So the dimensions should, in your drawing, come in blue, which is helpful because it allows us to see a little bit more contrast from the thing. When you come into dimension objects, the basic rule of thumb is to go smallest dimension to biggest. So the biggest dimension goes to the outside. So I might actually want to make this dimension that top midpoint because that's the overall height. And in that case, I move it out to the side. You'll notice some things about your dimension lines. They're going to be pointing to that insertion point. That's a good thing. You don't want dimension lines to touch object lines. So over here, it's a little bit awkward because it's a curve, and so that dimension line is touching the object line. So I might pull that out just a little bit, only for this one dimension, so that it's pointing to the line instead of touching it, okay? There are also things that you can do within your dimensions, and we'll look at this more when we get to the desk object, but you can shift the placement of things if you're trying to stack stuff so it looks nice. In general, avoid any time that the line will intersect with an existing line, and don't do stuff like, oh, I'm going to put this dimension in the inside. You don't want to put your dimensions inside of the object lines of the drawing for the most part. You want to pull them out to the side so that everyone can very clearly see the object, and then the dimensions are set outside of that. So if I wanted to like give us a dimension of the width of that door, right, I would do that. If I wanted, you know, the width of the windows or the spacing or whatever, you can play with the different options here. There are like chain dimensions and other choices available. I usually just use the standard one. And then the last thing that your dimension tool can do is if you switch to the opposite one, this one is unconstrained as opposed to constrained. The unconstrained dimension tool can allow you to measure something like that, which is on an angle. We shouldn't need that, but that's available. So you'll go ahead and give us basic dimensions. I don't need every spot on the whole thing. So give me like 6 dimensions around the outside of your door, and then hit Exit Viewport Annotation. So the last step we're going to do here is come in and edit our title block. So I went back and picked up my pointer, but I could also have hit the X key to get back to that. I'm going to double click on my title block. So when it's highlighted orange, I double click. There are 2 options here. There's the title block layout and the title block manager. You're going to leave the layout alone because I made it for you. You're welcome. And you're going to click title block manager, say OK, and then this guy is going to open up for you. So you'll notice there are a whole bunch of options that are not visible in the title block that we're actually using, and that's fine. So because this is a title block that is set up for projects, right, that are a play, it does have production, play title, right, and then it has the sheet information. That's all going to be over here on the sheet data. But here we go, project data, the play title, and this is going to be door, yes, that's okay, door project. Okay. And then designer, right, that's going to show up on here. That'll be your name. Your name. We have a director, a technical director. We can leave those blank for the purposes of this adventure because it's not going to really impact the rest of our title block, and we don't happen to have those on the project right now. Then you'll go to sheet data. The sheet title is front elevation, right? So that's the name of the view of the door. You want to hit refresh plot date in the next box and today's date in date, and both of those should open up. If nothing happens when you hit refresh plot date, you can switch down into auto medium, right, or auto short, and it'll add those dates in for you. You do need to give it a sheet scale that's not already filled in. So the sheet scale we are using, if you notice or remember, is 1/2 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches. And that should be all that you need to change. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we're missing anything important. Door project, front elevation, designer, your name. The CAD file does have the correct title. I don't know if yours will, but hopefully it does. And then it's sheet 1. So that's all I need to do on my title block. Now I have something that's ready for me to print. Yay, wonderful. So I will go up to File, and there are 2 ways to get something out of Vectorworks. You can either hit this Publish button, and that's when you're going to make more than one sheet layer. When you're going to put together the whole package, it will export all of those things as a combined PDF. So that's Publish. We're just exporting a single sheet, so we don't need to do that. We can go to Export. There are 10,000 export options. Yay for you. We just want this one right here where it says Export PDF. There are even more that are not on the screen. So we go to Export PDF. We let it continue doing what it's doing. All of that stuff is fine. We say Export. And it should give us this file, which is going to be like, hey, where do you want that? I'm going to put it into the same folder, right, that I have the rest of my stuff in. When I am exporting projects for shows and whatever, I will also start my export with the day's date so that I know, right, 09/08/2025, when this file was created. That'll help me very quickly determine what was the most recent file. So we're going to go ahead and start in the export title only with the name, the date, and then leave the rest of that the same. We're going to hit save. So what has happened is it has flown open a cute little Adobe Acrobat window. So I can look at my export and make sure I like how it looks. Looks great. That's perfect, fine, wonderful. Then you can upload this to the assignment for the door project. So now that I've done my door, I'm going to go in and do my logo project. It will be very similar, but not quite the same. So I go to open. I need to go into my CAD class folder, to my logo project, and I'll open up my logo project from last week. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of other ways to set up your individual logos onto a sheet layer. So because I'm using my template, I already have the same background sheet that I had, so that's great. I'm going to come back in to my scenery layer where I've drafted these logos. So I want, more important right now than these being an appropriate scale, is that they fit on the page. So I'm going to draw a rectangle around my first logo, and it's solid, so you can't tell that it's around. It looks like it's over top of. Draw this rectangle around it. This is the other way to create a viewport crop. If I draw a rectangle around the thing that I want, and then I say create viewport, I will get this pop-up, and it says the selected object may be used as the viewport's crop. Do you want to use this object as the crop? And the object that is selected, the bright orange lines, is that rectangle I just drew for the purposes of doing this. So I'm going to say yes. Then I'm going to put this over on my 8.5 by 11 sheet, and then I'm going to give it a name. I don't know what scale I want it in yet, so I'm going to just leave it in 1/4 inch scale, and we'll see what happens. So we go through, oh boy, that's very big, right? 1/4 inch scale is too big for this sheet of paper. So I can edit the scale while I'm here. I'm going to do that. I'm going to scroll down over here on the side in the object info. The scale is 1/4 inch. That's obviously too big. Let's see if 1/8 inch. If I want to fit 3 logos on this page, I think 1/8 inch is also too big, so I'm going to go one smaller. Nope, I'm going to go all the way down to 1/16. Okay, that's a more normal size, right? I don't need to do dimensions because this is just a logo. I am going to come in and clean up and center my drawing label right there underneath. Great, so that's number 1, and it is the Instagram logo. I'm going to go back now to my scenery layer, so I'm clicking in the column that has no check mark. I'm going to draw another rectangle around my next logo. View, create viewport, yes. And then in here, we're going to call this, I don't remember, abstract 1. We know it needs to be at least this small, if not smaller. We say okay. It's still too big. We're going to go all the way to the tiniest option available, which is right there. And then I'll just kind of line it up with its friend. It's nice if your drawing labels can kind of all align. That's a useful thing. It makes it look nice. You can also adjust that over there, so it feels a little bit more centered on the object. Okay, that's great. One more, right? One more logo. So another way that you can create a duplicate viewport, right, is you can just use Command D, right, or go up into the edit menu and duplicate. Is it in the edit menu? Yeah, duplicate right there. Duplicate. But I use Command D because I'm from the future. So over here, I'm going to make my third one. It's going to be called Abstract 2. And I'm going to just move my crop box around within the viewport. So I've turned it into Abstract 2. I'm going to double click on it. And I'm going to edit the crop. Right? So I'm going to take this box and I'm going to just move it down here around this other drafting on my same plate. Like that. Love it. Then I do need to kind of clean up the placement of my drawing label. So pop that underneath there. Okay. And then I'm going to just line those up, right? Because I would really prefer that my drawing labels are all basically lined up. Okay. So this looks pretty good. I might center it up a bit more so it looks kind of neatly organized on that plate. I will come in now and work on my title block with my title block manager, right? Active file only. So I don't want to mess with my door file that's still open. This is logo project export. Again, there's nothing here, so I'm going to just hit that, hit today's date, because I'm not sure which one is which. And this is no scale. I mean, they are in scale, but it's no particular scale, so I'm going to just type in no scale. And then over here, we're going to call this the logo. Yep, that's okay. Logo project designer, your name. Okay. So I think that cleans up most of those things. You might want to come down here and update the sheet number, and you can do that here as well. Great. And then if your project is ready, you go to File, Export, Export PDF, same process, Export. We're going to go ahead and give it a name, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going into my logo project folder instead of my door project folder. I want to be able to find this correctly, and I'm going to call it 09/08/2025 logo project. Save. There it is. So now I have both of those files ready to be uploaded to Canvas, and that is it for plating and export, at least for this version. And we'll come back to this on our next assignment as well.